The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our free bracket challenge. $2,000 winner take all. Enter today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bracket. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday, March 16th, roughly 1 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a very short episode, only one match to talk about. It's officially final time in Indian Wells, so we're going to break down the match between Rune and Draper in a few minutes. For that, though, do want to briefly remind everyone once again that you can show support for the show by liking, subscribing, YouTube reminder. Also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. So whether you consume the podcast on video format or, once again, audio-only format, it's fine either way. Just don't forget to leave some feedback so you can help the show grow. Plus, a reminder, also don't forget to check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, different colors, high quality, all affordable. Recommend getting yourself something there. And a reminder for the actual network, we do have a great promo going on for March Madness because we do have a free contest to enter. I mentioned before that we do have the free bracket challenge, and on top of that, there also is a way to compete against SGPN this March in our $75K winner-take-all Survivor contest for college basketball. March has never been this exciting. Enter at splashsports.com/SGPN to sign up. And anyway, starting off with the actual recap of what happened in the last episode. Unfortunately, it was not a good episode for us. Ended up losing the lock and the dog. For the lock, we had Alcaraz team total over 12.5 games at -115. Still like the overall price. I felt like we were in decent shape as Alcaraz got killed in the first set, won the second one to love, actually, won via bagel in the second set. And you figure, okay, maybe Alcaraz kind of righted the ship. Draper was falling apart, and maybe Alcaraz would find a way to win the match. Not so much. We needed Alcaraz to win the third set. He did not. So the point is we thought Alcaraz would win, and with that, we found a cheaper way to take the money line by taking the team total over instead. That premise was correct, but unfortunately, Alcaraz did lose. So that did not work out. For the dog, not even close. Had Medvedev to win the first set and the match at even money. Classic Medvedev, who ended up having a bit of a meltdown there in the late stages of the first set and the I'd say early stage of the second set. But props to Rune. I thought Rune played well. Each point felt like it was an eternity, but Rune did a good job of using some variety. Used the slice, maybe he borrowed that from the Feast playbook, but either way, point is he did a better job when it comes to actually converting in big points compared to Medvedev, and he got the job done there in straight sets. So I feel like most people, I'm assuming, got destroyed for the matches yesterday, unless you had Draper, for example, plus the games. But for the most part, you ended up expecting Alcaraz and Medvedev part 3. You got neither guy advancing to the final. So either way, ended up picking up a loss for the lock and dog. First lock, we've lost all tournament, which kind of sucks. We've done every round, but either way, try to snap back here on track on Sunday. Anyway, starting off with the actual recap of the semifinal matches. Mentioned them briefly, but I'll go a bit more into detail right now. So for the first match, you saw Rune beating Medvedev as Rune actually went up a break on two separate occasions in the first set. Ended up getting the break early and then gave the break right back. And then he ended up having a marathon hold in the 3-4 game, which he ended up fighting off a break point with. Then Medvedev ended up fighting off a break point in the following game. Then Rune eventually did convert at 15-40, and then he held it out to win the first set. Then he ended up jumping up a break immediately into the 1-1 game, and at that point, Medvedev just could not keep up. So I feel like the main talking point is how successful Rune was defending his serve for this match, because you ended up seeing Rune only face 2 break points in the entire match, and he only got broken once. So I feel like, once again, that is a pretty impressive showing there. Medvedev was broken multiple times. He was broken 3 times, so Rune did a better job at converting the big points, like I said before. One thing that I did notice quite frequently was the amount of returns Rune did get in play. Felt like Medvedev really did not get any, I'd say, freebies, and a big reason for that was the fact that Medvedev just could not hit a first serve to save his life. Rune did land 69% of his first serves, where Medvedev only landed 50%. So when your second serve has been kind of a weakness for the last couple of years and you can barely hit a first serve in play, you have problems, and that's what happened in that match against Rune. So either way, Medvedev couldn't hit a first serve, and that was kind of the story of the match, but Rune did a good job, and he was able to pull off the upset and get revenge after losing to Medvedev in this exact same tournament last year. For the later match, ended up seeing Alcaraz and Draper have a very, very weird start to the match, as Alcaraz couldn't keep the ball in play. Draper won the first set 6-1, and you figure, okay, Alcaraz came out extremely flat. We'll see if he raises his level, and he did, because he won the second set 6-0. Felt like Alcaraz went up early in the second set, and Draper said, why am I even wasting energy right now? I have another set to play, and he ended up punting it. So either way, point is Alcaraz went from 1-6 to 6-0 in a bizarre kind of pair of sets. And then Draper went up the break in the third set. Bit of controversy. I'll get into that in a second. Point is, though, Draper did go up a break, then he went up another break, and then eventually gave the break, or one of them back, but he ended up holding out to win 6-4 in the final set. So Draper, good for him. I've been praising him for a couple years on the show, thinking he'd eventually be a top 10 guy. Time is now, because I believe he's going to be number 8 in the world after this week. So congratulations to him. Think he has a decent chance if he stays healthy. Keyword, because durability has been a serious problem for him over the years. If he stays healthy, he can win a Grand Slam. I think he's that good. And we saw him make the semis last year in the U.S. Open. Of course, Sinner ended up beating him because Sinner beat everybody. But the point is, Sinner, I do think, is going to be a serious problem for Draper to deal with, like he is for the rest of the tour, especially on hard court. But Draper is very, very good. And I feel like people acknowledge how good he is, but I'm not sure if they fully realize the upside. He could be top 4 in the world, and I feel like nobody would be shocked, but I don't think people have really thought about it that way yet because he's still very young. If he stays healthy, watch out. Like, he's very, very good, and he was able to put that on display on Saturday against Alcaraz, and he was able to, once again, make it to the final of a 1,000 event. So we'll see if he can convert and get the title for the first time in a 1,000 level. But either way, point is, good job by him beating Alcaraz, who seemed virtually unbeatable on these courts. Highest win percentage of all time on Indian Wells courts was Alcaraz entering yesterday. So once again, he slayed Goliath. Nice win for Draper. We thought he'd have a fighting chance. It's why he was minus 130 to win a set. But we did think Alcaraz would eventually find a way. And Alcaraz was, I'd say, fine as the match went on. But to be honest, he just wasn't good enough. Draper, we know, is very disciplined. He's very, I'd say, smart with his shot selection. And he's very consistent. And the issue that Alcaraz runs into is that, yes, his overall firepower can be extremely impressive, and yes, he can make any shot in the book. The problem is the shot selection can be very suspect, and the consistency can be a problem. And that's why we've noticed Alcaraz get upset by a lot of players over the years compared to Sinner, for example. Sinner feels like beats everybody he's supposed to beat, and the only time he loses to like Alcaraz or Medvedev, top 5 guys in the world. Alcaraz, you remember he lost to Morozen on clay a couple years ago. He's lost to Makic last year. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, he is definitely an elite player, Alcaraz, of course. But the issue is when you rely so much on talent and maybe not enough on tennis IQ, things can go poorly for you when suddenly your shots aren't falling. And I feel like that was definitely where Draper took advantage. Thought he had a smarter game plan. And I feel like Draper did a good job of actually forcing Alcaraz into making difficult shots. And he couldn't do it on a consistent basis. A nice win there for Draper. And as a result, we have the final that nobody expected entering the actual matches on Saturday. Instead of Medvedev and Alcaraz part 3, we now have Rune and Draper part 1. So we'll see what happens, or in theory, part 2, because they played last year. I'll get into that in a second. Point is, though, should be fun. I see a log tech mentioning that he'll go with Draper and Andreeva. Shout out to Andreeva, by the way. I did not actually get to really talk much about it. I know that she was able to beat Swiatek in 3. I'm not even going to acknowledge the Keys match. Damn, Sabalenka killed her. I got nothing else to say there. Keys won 1 game. She won 1 more game than I did. So, yeah, that was not a good showing in the Australian Open final rematch. We'll see what happens in the matchup between Andreeva and Sabalenka. But either way, point is good for Andreeva, who's 17, just an absolute monster, and she's going to be really good for a really long time. Anyway, point is that's going to wrap it up for the actual recap of the semis. Once again, apologies for the plays that didn't work out, but either way, it is what it is. I'll look to bounce back here on Sunday. Before we get into the actual ad read and the preview of the final, do want to quickly segue for a second, because I said I was going to get into the controversy that was, I'd say, surrounding the middle of that Draper and Alcaraz match. I got to talk about it. Now, there was a controversial moment, which actually resulted in a break for Draper in the third set eventually, and that was the double bounce that was not actually a double bounce. Mostly, I'm going to open it up to a discussion about the chair umpire. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I have to bring it up. Mohamed Layani. I got to bring it up because Layani's been a colorful personality for a chair umpire for a long, long time. And I feel like if you do not know his actual name, you can Google him and you know exactly who I'm talking about. If I told you right now to think of one chair umpire on the entire tour, he would probably be the first face you think of. Probably. Now, there are a couple others out there, but you get my point. The point is, he's fun. he seems to try to be very, very, I'd say, positive all the time. And it seems like, by all accounts, he's a very nice person. However, I have to point out, I really don't think he's that good at his job. And I feel like there's always controversy surrounding his matches. And I want to bring it up because the thing that actually occurred in the middle of that point was just egregious from a chair umpire. And he actually messed up on two separate occasions on the same point. If you don't know the actual point, you can look it up. It's all over Twitter. A point is, though, Alcaraz tried a drop shot. I believe it was 15-30 in like the middle to beginning stages of the third set. Drop shot Alcaraz. Draper gets there, hits his own drop shot, and then Alcaraz launches the ball out of play trying to lunge for it. The issue was Layani ended up basically calling out midpoint, arguing that it was either a double bounce or he said it was not a double bounce. Point is, he opened his mouth midpoint, and that kind of threw everybody off to actually know what the ruling was. Then Alcaraz hit the ball out of play, and then Draper had to challenge the double bounce, which it was not. He got there. Then he called for a replaying of the point, claiming that his outburst or his call impacted Alcaraz's shot, which it clearly didn't. Alcaraz launched that ball out of play. It had no impact on him at all. So he messed up twice, and I believe Alcaraz ended up conceding the point to Draper in the end. So, in my opinion, the right result ended up happening, which was Draper getting rewarded the point. But Layani messed up twice on the same point, and I feel like there's always something with him in his matches when he's on the chair. And I understand that some people like him because he has a fun personality and he tries to bring a little bit of, I'd say, lightness to tennis to some degree. The problem is when you're the chair umpire for important matches like 1,000 event semis, or if you want to talk about Grand Slams, you can't really be that lighthearted when you're making these really egregious calls. And I wanted to point it out. I just feel like when it comes to chair umpires, he's one of the most recognizable guys in terms of just figures for chair umpires. And I really don't think he's that good at his job. So I wanted to mention that. He's been around for a long time, seems like a very nice person, has nothing to do with his actual personality or his actual, I should say, personal stuff. Has to do with his actual occupation and how I think he's really just not up to par. At least as often as he should be when you're going to be the chair ump for these very important matches. So yeah, my main takeaway, Layani is just not a great chair umpire, and I wanted to bring it up because I feel like there's always something with his matches, and that was definitely a serious piece of controversy, especially since Alcaraz eventually did lose that game, and that did give up the break in the third set for a match that he lost in. So I wanted to mention it. Point is, I feel like we're mostly going to agree on this, just based on Draper getting the right outcome in the end of the actual point. But I thought Layani made just a mess of the entire situation, and it's not the first time I've seen him make really bad calls in pretty important matches. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual recap of the semis. Now it's time to get into the preview of the final between Draper and Rune. For that, though, remember once again that we are brought to you by DraftKings, because when it comes to college basketball and March Mania, a reminder that the one thing is for sure, nothing is for sure. You'll get upsets, you'll get buzzer beaters, Cinderella's advancing, top seeds going home early. Maybe you want to take a shot with UC San Diego. Who knows? Point is, though, it's all going to happen. Bet the unexpected every upset, every day with DraftKings Sportsbook. They have live betting. They have exclusive content, promos, and parlays. DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonuses instantly. And a reminder, when you do bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook, download the app and use the code SGP. Code SGP for new customers will get $200 in bonuses when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Once again, in Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78 7897777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. A reminder, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/bonus audio. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm is starting an Epic March Madness party next week, and I will be there in Vegas. So if you want to see me, I'll be there from Tuesday, leaving early Saturday morning. But they're having an Epic March Madness party on Wednesday, March 19th at Alsima Stadium Swim at Circle Las Vegas. It also gets better. Rhythm's giving away $200 future bet for one lucky Rhythm user. And good news, if you cannot make the party in Vegas, that's fine. You can still enter the random drawing for the future. And a reminder that there's a free party plus a chance at $200 future bet when you go sign up with Rhythm. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for details. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the semis. Time to move on to the final taking place on Sunday between Draper and Rune. Now, for the actual line movement, a lot of money coming in on Draper. In fact, the lines climbed up pretty heavily. Draper's now minus 170. For Rune, it's a plus 150. For the spread, you have minus 2 games for Draper at minus 115. You have plus 2 for Rune at minus 105. The over-under in games is set at 22.5. The overs at minus 115. The unders at minus 105. For the team total, you have Draper over under 12.5. The overs minus 125. Unders minus 105. Rune, though, is at 12 flat at minus 130 to the over, and even money towards the under. For the set spread, you have Draper in straight sets at plus 165. You have Rune to win straight sets at plus 300. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. So I said before the break that this is part 2. Faced off last year in Cincinnati, and Rune killed him. Beat him in Cincinnati 6-4, 6-2. So keep that in mind. The court speeds, of course, are a lot faster at Cincinnati compared to Indian Wells, so we'll see what happens in this one. For the actual path of both guys, Rune has been solid. I feel like most of us, despite knowing how talented he is a bit surprised that he's actually in a final of a 1,000 event because he usually self-destructs. But he beat Moutet in straight sets, beat Humbert in a marathon in 3, beat Tsitsipas in straight sets, beat Griekspoor in 3, and beat Medvedev in straight sets. As for Draper, he's been dominant. Only dropped 1 set in the entire tournament, and that was to Alcaraz in the semis. He ended up beating Shelton in straight sets, beat Fritz in straight sets, beat Brooksby in straight sets, and beat Fonseca in straight sets. So Draper's beating good competition pretty decisively so far in the event. Now, the question is, Draper, this is probably the biggest match he's ever been in when you factor in the 1,000 element to it. Yes, he was in a Grand Slam semi. He was against a Sinner who killed him, so I don't know if they can really use that. You can argue that this is the second biggest match of his career. Either way, though, point is Rune, despite not really having the best of years up to this point, has been in 1,000 finals before. He beat Djokovic in the ATP finals in Paris a couple years ago, so he has been around the block before. So the question is, should Draper be minus 160 or minus 170? This feels a bit high. I understand Draper being favored because he beat Alcaraz, who seemed to be unbeatable on these courts. We know Medvedev can be a head case at times. So yes, even though Medvedev was 2-time runner-up, I think we'd agree that beating Alcaraz here is more impressive than beating Medvedev. Having said that, I do think Draper should be favored, but this does feel pretty disrespectful to Rune, who's had a pretty good run so far. Minus 170 feels really high. I think it should be closer to like minus 130, maybe like minus 125. Rune's been good. And the fact is, Draper did play the late match compared to Rune. Rune did have, I guess, an easier... I mean, it's kind of a weird situation because Rune did win in a competitive straight sets, while Draper did go 3. But 2 of the 3 sets were completely non-competitive, so it wasn't like they spent much time on court. For example, Draper and Alcaraz spent an hour 44, and Rune spent an hour 39. So they spent basically the same amount of time on court, and you saw Draper play an extra set, which is kind of weird. But point is, I think for the sake of this matchup, with Rune being the dog here and being 1-0 in the head-to-head, I see value on Rune. I understand Draper's really good. I acknowledge that he's going to be a top 10 player next week, but minus 170, like that feels really, really harsh to Rune, who's been objectively solid over the course of this tournament. The variety's been there. The rally tolerance has been there. Even the serve's been pretty good. I'm going to go with Rune for the value, at least to keep this close. I'll probably go with the +2 for the games, but plus 150 for the money line, I think is a really, really nice price for Rune. Or I do think if you want to go for maybe a bolder play, Rune in 3. If you want to go for a potential marathon, if Rune does win, I think it does go 3. I think that you're going to see a pretty competitive match one way or another. But minus 170, I have no interest in. I think that price is too big. I think Rune can keep this close. I think Rune has proven before that he can handle this type of environment in a 1,000 final. Draper remains to be seen. Draper's been in 5 finals before in ATP events. First time it's a 1,000. And he's also 2-3 in ATP finals. He's below 500. So Draper has not exactly been the best at converting in title matches, and I do think that Draper, as a result, is a bit overvalued at this point. If he wins, would I be shocked? No. I think Draper's arguably the better player. But based on the value, and the value is only on Rune for this one, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Rune for the value of plus 150, and I also don't mind the over in games at 22.5, and I also don't mind the over 2.5 sets at about plus 130. Think it will be a fun match. Think it'll be close. Think you'll see a lot of long rallies. But I think Rune has impressed a lot of people, and I feel like I'd say couple times a year, he'll remind everybody why he's always fringe top 10. He's really talented, and I feel like the issue is that his head's not always on straight, or that's where Draper might pull through, is that I think that Draper is a bit more consistent, and I think he's a bit more stoic. But I think you're looking at a fun matchup that could go either way. Give me Rune for the value as my, I'd say, main play on the money line for that one. I don't see any value on Draper minus 170. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual preview of the final. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks for the actual match. For that, get into that though, want to remember once again that we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because you can also use their Underdog Pick'em, bunch of different sports. You can use the NBA, you could use college basketball, you can use the NFL when it's in season, tennis, of course. Underdog Pick'em allows you to play any sport, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Sign up though with the promo code SGPN to claim a special first time deposit offer for 20 game bonus cash or fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost. A reminder that Edge Boost is partnered up as the premier Visa debit card for bettors. An Edge Boost card allows the ability to avoid being hassled by having your card denied at the sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, casino. That will not happen. You don't have to worry about getting your card denied, which is definitely a nice plus. You also get a great cashback reward system. You can earn $75 per month in cashback rewards by using the Edge Boost card. Money's also safe. Card's FDIC insured, and best part, no credit checks. It's completely free. Sign up for Edge Boost with the actual card, and a reminder, you can also enter our free $2,000 bracket challenge, bracket contest, whatever you want to call it, at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bracket. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished breaking down the preview for the final between Draper and Rune. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm actually going to go with a different angle that I did not mention when I went down the actual breakdown for the match. Give me Draper first set on the money line of minus 140. I think it's a good price. This was on Caesars. I find it a bit weird that he's minus 170 to win the thing, the whole match, and he's minus 140 to win the first set. Draper's been great in the first set. In fact, he has not lost a single first set in this entire event. He's won the first set in all 5 matches. Against Alcaraz, he won 6-1. Saw him win the first set against Shelton 6-4, beat Fritz 7-5, beat Brooksby 7-5, and beat Fonseca 6-4. He's been a really fast starter. Rune, though, not so much. He ended up beating Medvedev in the first set of the match yesterday. 7-5 was close, but he has lost the first set in 2 of his last 4. So I think Rune might be a bit vulnerable early in this match. I think that Draper can maybe ride the momentum that he had after beating Alcaraz in what felt like an impossible mission, just based on Alcaraz's form. You remember that Alcaraz had that crazy performance against Dimitrov a couple rounds ago, and it looked like nobody was going to touch him. But the point is, Draper, I think, has been a very good starter so far in the event. I think that the court speed actually kind of fits his play style perfectly. Give me Draper to start fast for this one. Give me Draper first set money line at minus 140 as my lock. For my dog, give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. I think it's a good price. You're looking at 2 of Rune's last 4 matches not ending in straight sets. Even the match against Medvedev was competitive. Both sets were, it was 7-5, 6-4. That did not, once again, go to a third, but the point is it was definitely in the balance. And I think you're looking at Rune, who has been up and down at times in matches where he might punt the set. We saw Draper punt the set against Alcaraz yesterday. We'll see what happens. But Draper, I said before, has been in 5 career ATP title matches, and there is one common theme. None of them are really easy. In fact, 4 of the 5 title matches that he's been in have gone to a deciding set. So I do think you're looking at Draper based on the historical form and based on Rune's recent form. I see a really just back and forth affair, which I think should result in a 3-set marathon. But Draper being in 5 career ATP finals, and you're looking at 4 of them not ending in straight sets. I think plus 130 is a great price. Also on Caesars, think that's a good number. So I'll take this before the line moves. So one's going to place here for the final. Indian Wells, the lock's going to be on Draper first at money line at minus 140. For the dog, I'm going to go Draper and Rune over 2.5 sets of plus 130. That's going to wrap it up. Reminder back once again with another 1,000 tournament coming up in a couple days. Miami. So we are going to do an episode per round in Miami as well. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, though, you can find me on Twitter Radio, find me on the NBA show, MLB show as well. A lot of episodes that already came out and are coming out next week. And a reminder, until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.